Welcome back to our next episode of The Awakened Stranger. Again, this is Cody, and today we're sitting with Tim. And kind of similar to some of the other conversations, him and I just got chatting, and we kind of jumped right into the call. He'd kind of just had a couple questions and asking kind of what was going on in my life and what was the purpose of these podcast calls. And so I'd kind of started explaining that to him, and that just quick realization that our conversation was going to turn out really well, and I just hit record. So that's what we're going to jump into, is just us kind of right into the conversation. And again, I thank you so much for spending this time with us, and you're about to hear a really good conversation and just some good advice from both of us, and kind of going through life. He's lived a great life and come through some big challenges, and we share stories. So with that, we'll jump right into the call, and thank you again for being here, and I truly appreciate you guys.
What do you believe in? Like, what do you have, like a higher power, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, so I was raised in the LDS Church, Mormon, if
Okay,
you will.
okay,
So my wife and I, in fact,
yeah,
July will be 20 years that we've been married. We were married in the Salt Lake Temple. So I kind of
okay,
grew up within that religion and the understanding there of the church, and kind of been probably 10 years of just being inactive as far as like a daily or weekly church type going, and just
okay.
this kind of gave me a bigger perspective. I think if you, I don't know, visually, like I look at religion being let's call it a small circle, and spirituality and kind of understanding things from a soul level, just opened up my eyes
Mm-hmm,
to a larger perspective, and just see things
mm-hmm,
from a different point of view now, just more of an expanded view, and almost, not even a bird's eye view, just an extremely zoomed out and, very, very big picture. So
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that experience kind of gave me a whole different perception on what's actually out there, or at least what I perceive. So just kind of went down a whole different path of understanding things from a soul's level, and from kind of the idea of why we choose to come here on earth, and what lessons we're here to learn, and what each lifetime's about. And so
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have a belief that there's a higher power. I use the word God as kind of the same as anybody, but source, creator, universe. I think God is creation itself. God is everything. And so it kind of changed my perspective. I don't see God as an all powerful man sitting on a throne up in heaven, waiting to see if your one lifetime gets you the access to Him again. I see it as a little bit different perspective now. So
Okay, okay.
yeah.
So what are you hoping to get out of this call? Like, what with us chatting today, like, what would you like to, where would you like to steer the conversation?
Yeah, so kind of the concept behind it, and literally with the podcast, was, from that first post that I posted, and a lot of people commenting. I had 200 followers the day that I posted that day one video, and
Uh
that's
huh.
now expanded over to 35,000 people in the last month, and a lot of people
Nice.
messaging and talking about things that they're going through in life, and that between a spiritual awakening, between a higher understanding of something else, their life experiences. That's what a lot of these calls have been, is other people sharing
Okay.
their story as well. It wasn't just
Sure.
me posting on TikTok and telling everybody about my life. It was other people kind of giving them a platform to share their life and some of their experiences. So that's where a lot of these
Mm-hmm,
calls have gone, is just kind of giving somebody space to talk, and then just a conversation. How each of our lives have been affected by something different, and somehow we're
yeah.
all collectively uniting in the same space of just understanding that something in the world's changing. People want something different, kind of tired of the rat race, and just a
Mm-hmm.
space to sit and chat with random people.
Okay.
So,
Um, yeah, so I could tell you a little bit about myself. So I was born and raised in California. I was raised as a Catholic. Um, I always like to joke that I'm a recovering Catholic. But um, I grew up in I guess you would call it like a dysfunctional home.
okay.
The people that were supposed to love and protect me didn't. And you know, my father was my biological father was a practicing alcoholic, and that's why my mom and my biological father split. And she remarried. I was about 6 or 7, and she just married another abusive guy, and he just was, yeah, he, not only like physical and mental, but spiritual abuse just for years. And this guy, he was a police officer in California, and he would bring his work home and take it out on me, especially. Not really his daughter, my sister Nicole, was like my half sister, but she's my sister. And yeah, so I got the brunt of it, you know, and my mom just let him and didn't really defend me. And you know, this guy comes into our family and you know, supposed to be a protector, not just a provider, but a protector, right? And he's just a maniac, and a lot of rage in him, and yeah, so I took the brunt of it, and then as I got older, I started to rebel, and I you know, sought escape through drugs and alcohol at a young age, and became more family with my friends than with my actual family. I didn't feel like I fit with my family. I felt like a black sheep, so to say, and so through my, you know, how do I say this? My my judgment being skewed because most of the time I was under the influence of something. I made a lot of bad choices, and through those bad choices, I ended up getting arrested a lot. And so I entered the system. I was probably about 12 years old, and you know, the problem was always me. It was never my dad or my mom or anybody else. It was always me. I'm always the one that had to go to counseling. I had to do the, you know, and no one wanted to take accountability or look at themselves and work on themselves, you know. So anyway, I in and out of the juvenile hall system, ended up going to this place called the Boys Ranch, escaped from there, and then got caught, and I committed a bunch of crimes while I was on the run, and got arrested again, and I went to what's called the California Youth Authority, which is like junior prison, basically, and a rough place. You know, a lot of gangbangers in there and stuff like that, and I wasn't a gangbanger. And then got out of that. When I was there, one of the things that they do like an evaluation of you, right? And they labeled me a poly substance abuser. It's like, you know, 5 or more substances at any time, and I just took whatever I could to change the way I felt, because I didn't like the way I felt. And because of this man, that it made me feel like I was nothing. I felt like I was nothing. I didn't care about myself or anyone else. Wow. And a lot of times, you know, I got to the point where I wanted to die and take my own life. And there was a couple attempts in there, you know, half-hearted at times, but serious as well. And let's see, after so while I was in there, they put me into a treatment center when I was in the California Youth Authority. And so that's when I first got exposed to 12-step recovery. And, you know, I went to all the meetings they had. They had NA and CA and AA and all the AAs. And I must have missed the part where they said, you know, when you get out of here, you know, go to meetings and get a sponsor and take the steps. Because I ended up in the same neighborhood with the same friends. And within 2 months, hanging out with them, and someone hands me a beer. And within 5 minutes of that, someone is, you know, offering 2 lines of cocaine with me. And you know, I'm, you know, upstairs doing that. And my best friend at the time, he you know, caught me, right? What are you doing? And I had, you know, powder on my nose, and he made the gesture with his finger on his nose, like, hey, wipe that off. And then he just walked out disgusted. You know, so I had people that cared about me. But like, again, I didn't care about myself. And I stayed out for a year, and then I ended up locked back up. And this time I went to prison. So I'm 19 years old, and I'm in San Quentin prison, walking up to the gates there, you know, with an orange jumpsuit and my blankets and all that, and walking up to this huge, you know, just like you see in the movies. I mean, San Quentin's been in a lot of different movies. And, you know, I was there for a few months, and then they transferred me to Coalinga CCF, which is in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And in between, like, it's like near Bakersfield. It's in between the Bay Area and Los Angeles. And so I did a year there, and exposed to all these criminals and all of this, just criminal thinking. And, I had a lot of the older guys like look out for me because I was a young guy in there, my nickname was youngster, I'm 19, a youngster, they come over here, but I guess I made some fair weather friends while I was in there, and really didn't have to worry about a whole lot, as opposed to when I was in the California Youth Authority. It was a lot of fighting, a lot of physical violence. There was a point when I was in Coalinga where a riot almost popped off, a race riot almost kicked off, and it was kind of crazy. Like the tension was so thick in the place, like you cut it with a knife. And so, anyways, I ended up getting out of there. I remember I started going to meetings while I was in there, and this one guy used to tease me and be like, "Oh, why are you going in there? Why are you going to those meetings? You're weak. You should be going to those meetings. It's a form of weakness." And I just kept going, even though this guy wanted to pick on me for it, And I just remember thinking to myself, because I was in there, and like I would be in there, and like one guy would get out, and he'd be back within a month or two, right back in the same place. "Hey, what's up, buddy?" And I was like, "This is crazy." Like, it's like a homecoming.
Wow.
And this guy leaves and comes back within a month or two, right? It's just insane. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be coming in and out of these places anymore. I want to do something different. So I started going to these meetings, started taking the steps. I got a sponsor and all that, and then I got out, and I had, I don't know, a little over a year sober, and I managed to put together almost 2 years sobriety, and my sponsor relapsed, and then instead of starting all over with a new sponsor, I ended up relapsing myself, and that happened, over and over and over again, in and out of AA and treatment centers and institutions. And there was a period after I got out, that was a while ago. I'm trying to remember, in the 90s. I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my 50s, and
Okay. Yeah, I'm 45. So
yeah, I'm a little bit older than you, and I got out in like 93. I was on parole from 93 to 96, and that's when I, started going to meetings again. And during that time, and I had a hard time keeping a job. Like, I didn't know how to do a lot of stuff, and I just didn't know how to live life, period. And I ended up hooking up with this girl that lived on the same block as me when we were teenagers, and we were talking while I was in prison, and then we ended up getting together, and then she ended up getting pregnant, and we ended up having a daughter in 95. And I started working in construction, and but like I said, I couldn't maintain a job, and I think I forget, I was a few years sober, and I was living with this guy in Campbell at this apartment. I can't remember. Howard was his name, Howie. And I was renting a room from him. We were sharing this apartment. And I remember, I think it was one of the times I was laid off or whatever. And I was just in this deep depression. And all I could think about was like running a hose from the tailpipe of my car into the car and taking it off, and then taking a bunch of pills and drinking and just going to sleep forever, and was just obsessing on that, and I ended up reaching out to this guy that was sponsoring me named Bobby, and Bobby's like, "I don't know, like I've never dealt with any of this before. This is beyond my pay grade. Like, you need to seek some professional help." And so that's when I did, and I found out that I had bipolar disorder. And so a lot of the behavioral stuff and the stuff that I was going through was mental illness. And I was treating it by using drugs and alcohol to help me with my symptoms. So that's when I discovered that. I started getting help around, mental illness stuff. And then fast forward to after that, her and I split up, and I still had a relationship with daughter. I'd get her on the weekends and stuff like that. And but I ended up getting into music, and I sang in a bunch of different bands, and it got to the point where we had like different record labels looking at us, and we were about to get signed, and with that rock and roll lifestyle, like, it's like a lot of alcohol, drugs, and women and stuff like that, and all that stuff became more of a priority than the music did, and I ended up imploding the band when we were pretty close to getting signed by a major label, and then after that, like, I just ran away, went to Oregon, and then caught another case, and this time I was facing 22 years, and all behind alcohol, and impaired judgment, and but I made the choice to drink, right? So I ended up fighting the case for over a year, and then finally ended up getting sentenced to a little over 5 years, and then I served 5 years 4 months, and I was released in 2008, and with nothing. I had nothing, and I remember I was in there, and during that time, like, I did whatever drugs were available to me. I kept doing the same behavior. I even made what's called Pruno, which is like a homemade wine that you use like fermented fruit and yeast and sugar to make the alcohol. And, got caught doing that a couple of times, got caught tattooing, got caught doing a bunch of stuff. So I probably should have got out a little sooner than I did, but anyway, so during one of these times I'd relapsed, and I wrote my buddy Ollie that I knew from back home, and he had gotten and stayed sober. We'd met in AA, and he wrote to me. He's like, "How are you gonna stay sober when you get out if you can't even do it in there?" And that statement really hit me hard and made me look at myself, and I started going to meetings again while I was in there, and I managed to put together about 12, 13 months before I got released, and I ended up transferring back down to California. My mom was during this time, while I'm locked up, my mom and stepdad, they divorced. He cheated on her, and broke my mom's heart. And when I found this out, I just wanted to hurt the dude really bad, and I didn't end up doing that, but she was graceful enough to let me come stay with her for a little bit while I got on my feet, and I started doing the meetings on the outside. Got that guy Bobby again to sponsor me, and started working the steps with him. And it was just during the recession, like '08, and when I got out, and I luckily I had guys that were in AA that were able to help me find work, and one of my friends, Mike, in there, got me in this glass company. I was working there, and then I ended up getting laid off, and then I didn't know what to do, and so I'm asking people around and trying to find work, and I even went to my parole officer, and my parole officer, he sent me to this place where they do they help you, they teach you how to build your resume, they teach you how to interview, and then they're supposed to place you in a job, right, that knows that you're a convicted felon, right? Mm-hmm. And there was no jobs to put anybody in, right? And I was at a loss, and so I'm talking to one of the guys that worked there, and I was like, "Hey, what should I do here?" And he's like, "Well, have you ever thought about going to school?" And I dabbled at community college a little bit, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess." And he's like, "Well, the classes are coming up at this community college here in a few weeks. We should sign you up." And he helped sign me up, and I started going to college at I don't know, I was in my 30s, right? 34, 36, something like that. I think it was 34. I was 34, and so I started going to college late in life, and I found out that I was really good at it. I found some things that I was interested in, and by being sober and taking medication for my mental illness, I was able to to get through, and I ended up getting my high school diploma and my 2-year degree in the same month. And I transferred to state college and got a degree there. And then once I got my degree there, I started like looking for jobs, and I got a job at this pretty famous paint company you probably heard of, and as an assistant manager. And I started working there, and unfortunately, at the place I was training at, there was some theft. And I didn't lie on my application. It said, you're a convicted felony. I put yes, and then I put will explain in the interview. I was going to tell them, hey, I was an alcoholic, and I'm being sober now, and that's behind me. That's not who I am anymore. That kind of thing. And it never came up. And so I started working, and then there was some theft at one of the locations, and so they dug deeper into everyone's background. And, they found out about my past, and then they ended up, they didn't fire me, and they didn't lay me out. They suspended me because they didn't know what to do, because I didn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm, distraught. I'm fired again and didn't know what to do. And then I found out about this place called the Record Clearance Project, where they help you expunge your record.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't want that to happen again, I didn't want opportunities to be missed. And so again, like still coming out of the recession and all that, and couldn't find work. And a girlfriend I was dating at the time, she was like, why don't you go to grad school? So I applied to a couple grad schools. I got into 2 out of the 3, and I started going to grad school for urban planning. And then I got my record cleaned up. I got my record expunged during that time. And then I had a buddy of mine. He was like, you should get into sales. Like, you'd be good at it, And so I was like, all right, let me give this a shot. And a lot of the people that, being in the Silicon Valley, right, there's a lot of tech companies. And so like a lot of the people that I went to meetings with, they were all in tech. And I got this one guy, Mark. He was like my mentor, and he's like, hey, read these books and go see this guy and get your resume done. And I went and did that. I followed direction. And then I ended up telling my friend Andy about it. We had mutual connection around skateboarding, and music. And then he goes, oh, my company's hiring. You should apply. And this is my boss's name. Hit her up on LinkedIn, and after you apply, and tell her you know me and you want to interview. And so I did that. I followed direction. I did that, and then within a week or two, I interviewed, and within a week or two, I'm working there, and I'm doing sales development. So I'm just calling up companies and people, and I'm trying to set meetings with an account executive. And then I changed a couple of companies here and there, but now that's what I do. That's now what my position is. I'm a software sales account executive, and I've been doing that for almost 10 years now.
Oh, very cool.
I'd love to tell you I've had the same sobriety date since 2007 when I first got out of prison. But during the time when I was going to college and I was doing courses at night, and I ended up getting a job at a solar company during the day. So I was installing solar panels. I ended up getting hit with this child support thing. And, I had the kids, and, I got to pay what I owe, right? But I'm making $18 an hour, and then now they're taking half, and I'm making $9. And I got resentful, and I went back to what I always did, and I started growing and selling medical marijuana, which was legal in California at the time. And then before I knew it, I was getting high on my own supply, and on another relapse. And I ended up just smoking marijuana for probably about 8 months to 9 months, something like that. And then someone handed me a beer in June of 2011, and I grabbed it. And then within a short period of time, I'm drinking like a bottle a night and smoking marijuana. And then I ended up hooking up with this girl who's taking pain pills. So I'm taking pain pills, and then doing ecstasy and stuff like that. And then I was like, I didn't want to get back into the hard drugs. And here I was, right? And how quickly it catches back up, and basically right where I left off from when I put it down, And thankfully, she went into treatment from all the pain pills that she was doing, like doctor shopping, and getting all the pills to support her habit. and pressure from me and her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend about getting help. She went and got help. And then while she was in there, that's when I did the ecstasy and really hit the bottle hard. And then she ended up leaving early, which I didn't really think was a good idea. But she left there after maybe, I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks. She was in there, something like that. And then she gets out, and I'd put down the bottle, but I was still smoking the marijuana and still growing it. And she basically told me, "Look, dude, you are jeopardizing my sobriety, and if you don't stop, you need to leave." And just to get her off my back, I told her, "You know what? I'll stop on Christmas." And 2 days before Christmas, we're driving to some Christmas party, and she goes, "Are you still going to stop on Christmas?" And I said, "I don't know. I still got 2 ounces left. I'll see if I can smoke it all by then." I don't know if you know how much that is.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're familiar with,
Yeah.
right? So I gave it the college try, and probably smoked about a half an ounce, and then I just remember I'm in the backyard on Christmas Eve. I'm smoking marijuana by myself, and she'd already gone to bed, and I just remember I put the pipe down, and I was like, I'm done, and I finally felt it, and I knew it. So I've been sober since Christmas of 2011, and I never would have thought my life would be where it's at today. Coming from getting out of prison in 2008 to where I'm at now is night and day, and I can't take the credit for that. It's definitely God. And I know Mormons might be a little different than other Christian groups, but I believe in Jesus. He's my Lord and Savior, and I got saved way back then when I was in California Authority at 16. But I tended to turn my back for God. And now I feel like I'm on the right path. Coming up on 15 years sober, and just super grateful that the AA introduced me back to God, and I gotta be grateful for AA and grateful for God, right? Because without those two things, I wouldn't be here today. I'd probably be locked back up, or I'd be dead. That was the kind of life that I lived. And there's some things I want to sprinkle in there. And I really liked what you said earlier about being more spiritually open and stuff like that, and I feel like I've been that way. I guess I'm not what you would consider like a typical Christian person. I'm more open-minded than that. I remember my sister and I had a conversation, and she was like, what if there's more than one path to God? And I think it's like 90 to 99% of the people believe in something. Right? How can the whole world be wrong?
Yeah. Well, that's for me, and I'll kind of give you a quick background. I got in trouble with the law in that 16, 17-year-old range, and was breaking into cars, stealing stereos, pawning them at the pawn shop, and we probably spent a couple years doing dumb shit like that. And I ended up with 86 charges, burglary and theft. One was a felony.
Oh my
God. So yeah, 86 misdemeanors, one felony. One home was in a garage that had a man door, and they called it burglary of a dwelling. That was a felony. And I got hit with about $80,000 of restitution, and my dad convinced me and the courts to try me as an adult when I was 17, because in his opinion it was going to be a lesser problem. And so fast forward, I get tried as an adult. I never did time in prison or jail. I had 6 months of work release, so just kind of a lockup facility that was semi-locked down. Just slept there. Had two full-time jobs at that point, so I'd get up at 7 in the morning and come back at midnight, sleep there, and spend the weekends there. And ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant in that time frame, and kind of come out of a work release program right into an apartment and right into being a dad at 19 years old. And spent most of my life just working, trying to provide and trying to be a dad. And then it was about 2013 that I had made over a 6-figure income in the car business. and
Uh-huh.
had been paying restitution all the way up through that time, but never really anything significant. They were hitting me with 18% interest the whole time. So my balance was getting higher every month that I was making a payment. And
Mm.
come to the first year of making a good income and filing taxes on that amount. And that's when the garnishments came, and they started taking 50% of my wages, trying to pay back the
Mm.
restitution. And then
Mm.
started taking tax returns, and then my wife's income and her taxes started getting affected, and decided at that
Oh,
point it was
wow.
time to fix my life, right? The problems I caused as a
Mm.
teenager, and
Right.
met up with the prosecuting attorney's office and started working together on a plan on how to actually pay down my restitution and really clean up my record. And
Mm-hmm.
had the opportunity to basically negotiate and talk down with the state some of the interest they've charged me and some of the fines and the fees that they had assessed to the total case.
I did the same thing.
Then
Yeah.
they ended up giving me a list of all the victims, and I wrote a letter to each person. And now this is 20 years from the incident, and asked for
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness, asked for some ways to resolve some things, and honestly, I had asked a few people if they'd be willing just to write off the difference. Some of the balances were less than $100 on some of these items that had been stolen out of their car, and 20 years in in the past. And I had
Right.
some people that would just forgave it and walked away, and some people that had then started looking into me, and I had gone a very different route from my teen years to being an adult. And at this point I was about 32, 33 years old. And so we had good vacations. I had bought a house. We'd had some fun cars, making six figures plus in the business. And I had a few people that kind of got upset. They're here you are asking for forgiveness from what you did and asking for us to waive $100. They're barely getting by, and my social media profiles were vacations to Hawaii and a house and a yard and
Oh,
cars and toys. And I kind of felt at that
yeah.
point that, right, I was like this two-faced person. One trying to present to the world that I was this successful guy and that things were good, and the other side where I was asking
Mm.
for people to write off $100 so that I didn't have to keep paying off my debt. And
Mm.
that kind of hit me in the face. I realized I needed to be the same person consistently on every aspect. And so I went through the process of paying off the debt, paying off all the victims. Then I went through and did all the court paperwork myself, had my record expunged and my juvenile record sealed. And on paper now
Mm-hmm.
today, I'm a perfect citizen. I have definitely a past. And then, yeah, I spent 13 years in the car business, kind of producing an income and getting to where I'm at now. And then here I am with this big kind of change in life and a spiritual awakening from a big dose of mushrooms. And now all of a sudden, everything in my life is different. But I do
Mm.
believe that every good person, everybody that I've met that has some serious value in life, seems to have a very significant past. And for me, I feel
Mm.
like that's what makes the character. That makes a good person. But so yeah, not to the same level as you, but I've kind of gone down that path a little bit myself. So
Yeah, I wanted to dive into a little bit of the spiritual stuff. So, um, and thanks for sharing that with me.
yeah,
I mean, we're more similar than than I thought.
yeah,
Initially. Uh, so yeah, so I was talking to my sister about that. And she said, there's more than one path to God. And I remember going to see a counselor, this Indian lady, and I was complaining to her about how my life was, and how rough it was. And I went through all this and that, a lot of the stuff that I've shared with you. And she's like, what if you you signed up for all this stuff? What if before you left the spirit world, like you wrote a contract that you wanted to go through all these things to grow spiritually?
hmm
Some people might not sign up for, things that are as extreme as what you've been through. Maybe you wanted to grow quicker, right, or something like that, right? And I was like, huh, yeah, maybe,
hmm
right? Maybe that's, I was supposed to go through all this stuff to grow spiritually, right? So that really opened my eyes. I was working at this one company, and the guy that was my boss, his dad was in recovery, and he was just really, he wasn't an alcoholic, or he was a really sharp guy. And really, even though he's younger than me, he was like a mentor to me, and he pushed me, you know, um, to do better, to be better. And there was this lady, she had been like on Oprah and stuff like that. And she, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she had these like, these like self-help or like seminars type of thing, right? So we ended up going to this hotel and doing this 3-day seminar. And there was this, I don't know if I met my dad, my real father. He passed away from alcohol and drugs at 61, and I think he'd been passed on for maybe 3-4 years at the time. And so I'm doing this thing. We're doing this one thing where we're calling out to our parents, right, and calling out to him, and then like, we have our eyes closed, and like his face appears, right? But it looked like kind of like an angel, it was trippy. I can't explain it. And just before we did that exercise, I found this little stick that was like on the ledge, and I went over there and I touched it, and it turned out to be this crystal called selenite.
Okay.
And so that crystal is supposedly opens you up to spirits and angels. And I didn't know what it was. I asked afterwards what it was, and the guy told me, and then I looked up, what the significance was, right? And then that happened, and I was like, whoa, and I was able to basically work through some of that, those daddy issues that I'd had, right? Where these men that were supposed to love and protect me, weren't there for me, and I was able to, find forgiveness, right? And then I went to the stage 2, and we did that, and they do what's like kind of like a trust fall type of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they ended up lifting me up and holding me up and having my arms spread out like Jesus on the cross kind of thing, even though it wasn't like a religious thing. And my boss, who was my mentor at this thing, he had picked the song Arms Wide Open with Creed. And it was just, you know what I mean? Just spot on. As a rocker, you know what I mean? And it was just spot on. And I remember when they brought me back down, I felt like light and like clear, and like my spirit was clean, and I felt like light. I don't know. I just felt like God's presence, right? And I remember sharing that with people. Like, whoa, that's awesome. You're having that experience, And so like that had built upon the first experience, I built upon the second. And during this time, I'm still doing therapy, right, for myself, trying to work through some of my issues. And there's this type of therapy called EMDR, which stands for like eye movement desensitization or rehabilitation. And so I'm doing this EMDR with this therapist, and I remember it was like Halloween of 2017 or 2018. And I remember because we had a Halloween party, and I was dressed like Spider-Man. And so I had the Spider-Man suit on, except for the mask. And I'm just, doing the EMDR with her. And, we came to this point where she's like, okay, now I want you to imagine, your grown self taking that hurt little boy of 10 years old, and you're going to take all that crap, and there's a fire you're going to cross over this bridge, and there's a fire down on the bottom of where the bridge is at, and you're going to throw all that crap in that fire, and you're going to take that little boy, and you're going to walk him across the bridge to safety. My older self, is helping my child, inner child type of thing, right? And I remember I just broke down. I'm getting emotional right now just thinking about it, and I just broke down, and I was crying uncontrollably for probably about 20 minutes. And all the pain that I'd been holding in my body was released. And again, I felt that. You ever get like the chills?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It felt like the chills times 1,000 all over my body. Right. So the pain had left me. I'm feeling the chills all throughout my body, and it's just vibrating. And I felt like that for 2 hours after the session,
Wow.
just like on this spiritual high. Right. And, and then like within, was it a year or two later? So not right around the same time, a friend in recovery introduced me to this guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So he sent me a YouTube link of the pineal gland meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So I had done that. I think this was after. It might have been right around the same time. It's the thing with the self-help, second meeting, and the thing with the counselor and this meditation happened all around the same time. I'd say within the same year. My timelines, I need to figure this out. But so he sent me this meditations, and so like everybody's like, I don't know, pretty much gone for lunch or whatever. So I end up doing this meditation at my desk, and then I go out and I go for a walk. Like, and then one of the things is like you are putting out this like positive energy. You have like this force field type of deal, and of positivity, and I went out and I'm interacting with people, just smiling or waving, and people were just so receptive, and it was just like I was attracting all these different positive people and reactions. It's like people could feel, you know what I mean? What I was feeling, type of thing. It was trippy. So that was my exposure to Joe Dispenza. So I ended up doing a retreat. A meditation retreat with Joe Dispenza in Cancun. Like I think it was right after COVID, I want to say, like 2020, like December of 2020 or maybe 2021. So I went and did that. And during that time, in the first few days, they're teaching you how to meditate. Like I'm sure I had done some at home and what have you, but I wasn't by any means like doing it on a regular basis. And then so by the third day, again, had another one of those spiritual experiences where I felt God and just crying, and it was powerful. And then towards the end of the retreat, what they do is they want you to focus your energy and your meditation on someone else and bring them healing, because they brought people on stage that had brain cancer, people that had other types of cancer and illnesses, and through the meditation they had healed themselves. And this is something that Joe Dispenza had done himself. He had basically healed himself through meditation because he was partially paralyzed. So we get to the end of the, we're doing what's called a coherence meditation. So they have like 5-6 people lined up. They put a picture on your seat of someone that has some kind of illness. You don't know their name, you don't know anything about them, and you're just focusing your energy on healing that person, right? So I'm doing that. I'm following the instructions. He's going through, focus all your love and your healing on that person, and heal them from this disease. And he goes, put God's love on them. And he goes, okay, now take that God's love and turn it onto yourself. And boom, I just felt God's love. It was crazy, and just powerful spiritual experiences. And I remember, like, I've slacked off lately, but I was meditating like every day, like for a long time, and sometimes I'm doing these 1 hour plus meditations, and, one of them I did around love, and, now, I met my wife, and I've been married the last 2 years, right? After the, meditation thing. Another thing is about abundance, right? I never thought, because of my debts and the court fees and the child support and all these things I had, that I'd ever be able to afford a place to live, especially not in California. Well, now I live in Wisconsin, and, I within 4 or 5 months of living here, I bought a duplex, and I've been in this duplex for a few years now, and hopefully within the next month or two, I'm going to buy another one.
Nice.
And it's like I said, it's nothing that I've done. It's all through people that I've met in recovery, and I feel like God puts people in our lives for a reason,
Yeah, I
and
100% agree. Yeah. It's
one experience is built upon the other. And anyway, I really related with your story and your vulnerability, and I appreciate you doing that, like being so open and vulnerable on social media like that. To me, like, I don't know if I could ever do that, at least not right now.
yeah.
Maybe some point, but yeah, I
It,
don't know. I'll stop there.
no, I love it because your story is so similar to mine, right? We've had different experiences, but a lot of the same type of things that have kind of brought us back to where we are. Um,
Hmm.
I kind of, shared a little bit about my past and kind of getting in trouble and going through that. And then, becoming a different person and raising my kids. I've got 3 daughters now. My youngest is 17. We got a 19-year-old and a 26-year-old. And my adult daughter is now married 4.5 years. We got 2 grandkids. And,
Oh wow.
and yeah, life looks completely different when you stop doing the dumb shit. And,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but yeah, that's what happened to me. I kind of never went to any retreats. I did a lot of the self help stuff and the Jim Rohn, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, a lot of the kind of sales and self help type stuff. Because was a big part of my life for a while, being in the car business and really just
Yeah.
wanting to be the best person I could. And that my dad was the one that got custody of us and raised us after my mom divorced, and he's not the type of person I think should ever have control or any influence on kids, let alone adults. He's not the best person. I've had to pretty much block him out of my whole life and block him on all social media and
Mm,
go no contact. It's just not the type of person that I want in my life. But as I
right.
started defining who I wanted to be, a lot of it came from seeing him in his life and knowing exactly who I didn't want to be, and kind of
Mm,
changing those things and becoming a different person because of what I watched him do. And
right.
but yeah, and then I got into meditation. I started looking into what happened. I got introduced to the law of one, which is a concept kind of from creator, from source, right? That we all kind of continue, or we all go back into one. That we're all just a god, a creation experiencing itself, to then ultimately kind of return back to source and share that experience and let creation evolve that way. And that
Mm,
kind of started me down the spiritual path. And then there was the introduction to psychedelics, and I had my I don't know, 6 to 8 months, maybe a year of really kind of looking into psychedelics and taking a lot of mushroom journeys. And I used to always say that was, one night with mushrooms was like 10,000 hours of therapy. And
mm,
and I was introduced to it as more of a recreational fun drug, hanging out and sitting in the hot tub and just giggling and laughing with your friends for a couple hours at a time. And
mhm,
then after really researching into it and understanding maybe some of the benefits and the therapy side of it, I really addressed it from a therapy side. And maybe this is my excuse to make it not seem so bad. But it definitely, I did treat it as a way to kind of get into some of that inner child healing and generational trauma and kind of healing my trauma from my dad, and a lot of
mhm,
meditations that kind of led me to the gateway experience and the meditations through hemisync and kind of tapping into both sides of the brain, which that moved me into astral projection and lucid dreaming and kind of understanding that
mhm,
consciousness is way bigger than just our perception of this human world. And I think that's kind of what opened my eyes to having this a little bit broader perspective of spirituality versus religion.
mhm,
And I feel like they go hand in hand. There's just one's a little bit more expanded view, a little bit larger concept. And
mhm.
and then I had a really, really big experience one night on mushrooms. I had taken 5 grams dried mushrooms, taken them
Oof.
with the intention to really go internal and to solve some problems in my head. So
Yeah.
in a spare bedroom, in total darkness, no noise, no music, blindfolded, just completely in the dark. And
Mhm,
I had an experience where my consciousness left my body. I was fully aware that I had died, that I was no longer in an earthly being. I was no longer in my body. And there was some really crazy stuff that kind of was made aware to me, and it took a few years before I really understood what I saw or what I thought I saw. Kind of
mhm,
took some time to decide if it was right just a hallucination, if it was the effects of taking mushrooms, or if it was something from a different dimension. And they continued. I chased that feeling for a while. I used to go down to my basement every other weekend. Did that for like 6 months of just Saturday night, say goodnight to the family at 9:30, go downstairs, take a dose, and continue these journeys, these trips to go find myself. And it got to the point where it just, that became, and I've got a very addictive personality. I tend to go all into everything, no matter what it is. And and that happened. I got into the part of growing my own mushrooms and then making sure that I always had some on hand. And that kind of went down that several ego deaths, a lot of times where I thought I had killed myself and poisoned myself with mushrooms, and then come through an ego death and realized that it was, my ego letting go of something or understanding a different belief pattern. And yeah, I had a couple experiences where I had that inner child healing kind of meditation. And in my view, it was, walking back into your childhood bedroom, sitting next to your childhood self and being there to pick him up and to support him and let him know that you've got it from here, and walk away from that childhood home and turn the corner and just kind of let all that go behind. And same thing, I still can, right, my body just went into full chills telling you that. And a lot of crying. I feel like for me, there's been this kind of recent, in the last 2-3 months, more of an awareness, if you will, or an awakening to like a divine feminine energy. I've always had this masculine idea of, right, my way or the highway. I do everything better than you, like just this big ego kind of standpoint. And it's switched lately. I'm seeing things from a different perspective. I'm seeing things from how other people would think about it. I don't get offended at all. I don't get things that bother me. I tend to just kind of be a little bit more chilled and relaxed, because it's like I'm realizing that everybody has a path, and everybody's life path and everybody's direction is different, and it's all correct. Nothing's wrong. The same idea that all religion is right for whoever needs to experience it, that like that's all life is just an experience. You'd kind of mentioned with, I'm sorry, taking some notes here, but when your sister were talking to you about some of the contracts, right, setting up some ideas with your higher self before you come to this earth, I've had that understanding that we have soul contracts, that we kind of create these agendas or these contracts with our other soul family. People are going to be a part of our life to come to this lifetime, to learn certain karmic lessons, to heal generational trauma. And I've had that understanding, at least from my dad too, and my mom, that their role in my life was on purpose. That, my dad is this person who he is that I've chose to block out of my life, but he had to be that same person for me to get to where I'm at in my life. And so there's this perspective that I still love him for who he is. I choose not to be a part of his life or want him in my life because of some of the decisions that he's made and things that have happened. But there's this spiritual side of it that just loves him for who he was and who he chose to be in this lifetime for me to learn certain lessons and for me to kind of come through some of those traumas. And it's a weird feeling to like have this distance from somebody that's been in your life, but also this like love and appreciation for what lessons that I've learned through it. Right. I believe that everybody's kind of here on purpose. I've used the example of like a script in a play, right? If everybody's just reading their script and everybody's playing their part, then everybody's doing it correct. They're doing everything right. They're playing their part the way they were supposed to. And I have this idea, right, that when everything's over, whether it's this great solar flash that everybody wakes up from, I feel like we're just maybe spirit dreaming in this physical reality. And one day we're going to wake up from this dream and we're going to have all these new agendas, new life lessons that we've learned in this physical reality that will apply to our spirit self. And I've got this idea that one day we're just going to wake up and everything's going to be back to normal. Like we're back in a higher dimension. We're understanding things from a different perspective. And it's going to be just a really cool experience that we've had living this life. And then we're probably going to do it again, right? We're just going to say, okay, well, we've learned these lessons. So now what do we want to achieve next time? And we're going to create a new soul contract, and we're going to create new lifetimes, and we're going to go create new experiences to have. And I don't know, maybe that's my idea of like, reincarnation. We just keep living.
One more time around,
Yes.
might do it. I don't know if you know that song or not. Soundgarden.
Yeah.
He's talking about reincarnation. One more time around might do it.
Yep. And it's been just enlightening, if you will, that I just have this different perspective. growing up in the LDS church, their concept is, right, you live one life, you've got to do your best, and at the end of that lifetime, you get placed into one of three heavens and one kingdom, and if you didn't do everything
Mm,
right, then you're stuck wherever you end. And
mm,
I have a hard time
yeah,
believing
yeah.
that if that's
It's
if
very,
that's
very
a,
black and white. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
right. If
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
such thing as a just God or a God that actually loves people, then why would you have only one chance? Like there's just it doesn't seem right. It seems like I don't know. For me, it's life's about experiences. It's about learning lessons and then repeating them if you didn't get it the first time. And it's just
Right,
so
right.
yeah, it's kind of like I said. It's looking at life as a game almost now of just like the end goal is to become the best version of yourself and to do it as any direction, any path that you want. And I do. I
Mm,
believe that everybody chose certain things in your life, right? You chose to go through certain experiences. I chose certain experiences that would give us a lesson, an example, or somebody to learn from, and ultimately to see if we caught on. And so, I don't know.
yeah,
It's definitely a different perspective when you look at it from that way, because in that aspect, everything's good, everything's right, every experience is the way it's supposed to be, and it's kind of hard to see things from a negative perspective when everything is here just to teach us something. So definitely a
yeah.
different understanding.
Couple things stood out from what you said. Like, so one, you're talking about your ego, right?
Yeah.
And there's all these silly sayings in AA, and they said that ego stands for edging God out.
Hmm.
You know, another one I've heard is like, my ego is not my amigo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another one came to mind was, religion is for people that are trying to stay out of hell. Spirituality, they've already been there.
Yes.
you know, I'd like to connect you with my sister. So she is into like microdosing.
Okay.
For me being an alcoholic and drug addict, personally, I don't think that's wise.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I will abuse it, but I don't want to take that chance, right?
Yeah.
But she's done like, what is that? What? Not peyote, but when you do those in Peru, like it's like
Ayahuasca.
ayahuasca. She's done ayahuasca. And she just got her master's in psychology, and she has like her own. Here, let me find out her page. I forget what it's called. But she's got a whole like spiritual practice thing. And she does these retreats.
Oh, very cool.
I don't know if that's something that you'd be interested in, or like, I don't know, like is your wife like on board with you with doing all this kind of stuff? Like,
yes and no. We've had some
okay.
experiences together. We've also done things very separate. And same thing. My wife kind of grew up. I was introduced into smoking marijuana when I was like 36. Was the first time that I ever tried smoking weed. My wife
Okay.
grew up with, from 14 to 20 years old was kind of her time frame trying out drinking and weed and kind of anything and everything at that point. So we both had different times in our life that kind of became the experimental side. So for me, yeah, like 36, 37, it was a time in Hawaii. We were on the beach together, and another couple kind of addressed us and wanted to know if we wanted to smoke together. And I had
Okay.
never tried it in my life, but kind of was open to it. And sitting on the beach in Maui, it just seemed like the right space. So that was my introduction to weed. And I currently have my med card here in Utah, and I use THC
Okay.
sometimes. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I always say I'm super OCD and very ADHD, and weed seems to turn my brain to a spot where I can manage my thoughts versus just letting everything race. So it slows me down versus, it just allows me to process thoughts before I speak sometimes. So
Yeah.
yeah, without it, it's like my brain's going 200 miles an hour, and you probably couldn't keep up with the conversation because I jump subjects so fast. But that sometimes, and it's more of my afternoon type of just let my brain slow down and process things one at a
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
been a
all
little,
good, man.
but
No judgment here, man. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
So
Whatever works. Yeah. So her thing is called soul medicine. Is this
okay.
your cell phone number?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can text you like Yeah, I know she's doing like the reason I asked if your wife's on, because she's doing like a retreat for couples towards the end of the year.
Okay.
I think she's going to do it in like Mexico.
Nice.
So it could be like I think she picks like a spot, near like a beach or something like that. She had one just for women not too long ago, and she's doing another one coming up.
Very cool.
And she invited me and my wife to go. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Something you might be interested. I could send you more info if you'd like.
Yeah, please do. And I've kind of shared with everybody, if we've exchanged phone numbers, in my opinion, that's friends, and friends don't have to ask permission to talk to each other. So I would definitely love the information and sharing that, because I've always heard, right, when ayahuasca keeps getting brought up, it's like, right, Mother Ayahuasca is calling for you, and so it's come a little bit more.
My sister has a lot of. Yeah, she's got a lot of experience with the microdosing, and she did it like what you were talking about, doing a big. I don't remember the amount, but I don't know if it was 5 grams, but it was a bigger amount than she'd done in the past. And so she just did that recently. Did like a deep mushroom dive, or I don't know what that journey or whatever you would call it, right? And came out, totally different. And we've had conversations about where because she quit a corporate job. She's been a little more brave than me. I'm trying to do it. I'm doing a little more of the safe route, where I'm trying to build up my real estate so that I can just live on the cash flow, and then just leave gracefully. You know what I mean? But again, I have an 11-year-old, and then I got 2 grown kids too. So I got to think about them. So once I'm in a position to be able to be okay paying the bills and making sure the family's okay, definitely I want to walk away too, right?
Nice, yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Very cool. Yeah, I've actually kind of had this idea too, and that came along with this last month of just really changing everything in my life. I've always been called to Maui. That's kind of a spot that I feel like I'm supposed to live.
I love Maui. Yeah, Maui's amazing.
We vacationed there for the last 15 years. I go there for my birthday. In fact, I just a month ago took a 2-week solo trip and went to Maui by myself, trying to decide who I was going to be and what I wanted in my life. And right before I left my job, I had just gotten back from a 2-week trip by myself. And but that's kind of been this evolution of what I think I want to create is kind of like that, a healing or retreat sanctuary in Maui, where people could come and travel there and have guided meditations, horseback riding, hikes, yoga, anything like that, as well as some plant medicine therapy, and just kind of an all-inclusive healing retreat. So
yeah, maybe you could partner with my sister, on one of her things. She's pretty open, man. I'm happy to introduce you to.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
And she's into the plant medicine. Like I said, her daughter, who's, how old is Lily? She just turned 21. She got yoga certified, and my sister's a certified Reiki healer. And like I said, she just got her master's in psychology as well. She's connected with some people that a doctor that actually prescribes microdosing, or has some kind of business around that. But she's really well connected. I think connecting you two would be really beneficial. And I'm happy to help lead some meditations from what I've learned. I'm not like a guru or anything, but I learned enough from Joe Dispenza, where I feel like I can guide other people. So.
See, that's from the beginning of our call, when you kind of asked like the direction. That's what's been happening lately, is just people sharing stories, strangers meeting strangers, and then building this community of connection of just a lot of people out to help. And that's what it seems like, is everybody's gone through something in life that's led them down this path that ultimately is collecting us in the same space. And that's what I feel like is happening, is just a lot of people from a lot of different experiences are all here to help each other, whether it's through passing referrals, talking about an experience, or being a part of something. So it's kind of, in my mind, it's just an ever evolving concept that's definitely guided by God. It's no longer me. This has gone over 9 countries now. I've talked to people in 9 different countries, have conversations from people of all walks of life, coming from all starting points. And ultimately we're all here in this space wondering what life is about and what we're supposed to be doing. So there's a bigger calling here for sure. That's so.
So where do we go from here, Cody?
Well, it's up to you. We can keep chatting. We can set up another conversation. I think just you and I talking has been kind of fun. There's a lot of similarities. So,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. A
For
lot of the
sure.
times I've kind of just scheduled these call blocks for like an hour at a time just to decide, if there's a conversation worth continuing or if it's just a quick meet and greet. But
No,
definitely
I'm
seems like,
happy to do that, man.
yeah,
Yeah, we can set up like a recurring call if you want.
that would be fun. And I
You
think,
know.
and that's I'm getting a lot of comments from people, a lot of just they're understanding some of these conversations. It's being affected by a lot of people. They're so that's more, I guess, the plan is just letting the world know that they're not alone, that everybody's got something in life that
Mm,
they've dealt with, that we've all gone through some sort of struggle. I don't feel like
mhm,
any one person's life is better or worse than another's. We've all just had experiences, and that's kind of
mhm.
what the whole idea is just letting people know that there's a safe space to feel honest and open, and that
Yeah.
I might have had just enough guts to put myself out there having a breakdown online and letting people see me cry, but there was more of a message than just me leaving my job and trying to find a business and start something that would cause me to be scared. That kind of day one video affected a
Mhm.
lot more people than just me saying I wanted to leave my job. So there
Yeah.
was a bigger reason behind it. So I'm just following the promptings.
Yeah. Have you heard of a lady named Brene Brown?
That name's not familiar, fortunately. So,
So
but yeah.
she does she's like a sociologist or psychologist or something like that. Let me see if I can't find. She has a video. There you go. She did a vulnerability TED talk, and that's why I it's like not. Yeah, it's called The Power of Vulnerability. It's got 24 million views on YouTube.
Okay.
Brene Brown, Brene Brown, and her story is awesome. And she talks about for us to experience joy, we have to go through pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or for us to really experience in these high things in life, happiness and joy and love, we have to be vulnerable. And I don't know about you, but growing up, how I grew up, you didn't I didn't cry for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Probably from the time I was 10 until way later in life. And now it's like I'm okay with it. Like if I cry or cry for somebody else, it's not a big deal. I just got to release the emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's one of the powerful things that you did was that you were vulnerable, and you let your guard down, you let people in, and
Yeah.
I think that's hang on to that is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah, that you might get something out of that TED talk that she did. Oh,
Nice.
power
Yeah.
went out.
I'm gonna
Power's
definitely look
back
that
on.
up. So very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. It's called The Power of Vulnerability. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I should probably rewatch it. I've sent it to some people in the past and told them about it. And I've read a couple of her books. She has one called Daring Greatly, I think it's called. And there's a couple others. Let me see. Brene Brown. And I'm thinking about doing another, Dare to Lead and Daring Greatly. And then The Gifts of Imperfection. I really like that one too. That was a good one.
Okay.
I feel like that out of the three that I've read, that was probably my favorite. Gifts of Imperfection.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. And I sharing that type of information, for me, like one of the most favorite TED Talks I ever had or listened to is about 15 years ago, but it was Simon Sinek, and he talks about the power of the why.
Oh, The Power of Why. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. That
And
guy's in recovery. If you didn't know,
okay,
he's one of my homies.
nice. Yeah. And
I'm probably not supposed to share that, but
no, that's like I said,
it's tribal knowledge.
every great person has a past. That's my full belief. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So, yeah, that talk alone, that's what I keep referring back to. That gave me the motivation to leave my job and to go start a business, to kind of create that why and wanted to be a part of people's lives, and realizing that, right, if you create the why correctly, then the money's the side effect. That's the benefit of doing things right. So I just definitely kind of see things from that perspective because of him. So very cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think I have his book on Audible. I might even have a physical copy as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It was just called The Power of Why, right? Or
Yeah, I think
trying to
so.
remember. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of the same sales books too. Like, not I think I might have the Zig Ziglar one. I really didn't dive into that one, but I got into like Jeb Blount is one. Another guy you probably heard of, Grant Cardone.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, sales. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I went to the 10X conference a couple years ago, which was amazing, and one of the guests was Ryan Reynolds, so that was really a cool treat. And like, there was all kinds of really cool speakers there. I got a lot out of it. It was the last one he was going to do.
Very cool.
So I was like, well, I better do it now before they stop doing these.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know?
Yeah, I was able to attend the last public speaking of Zig Ziglar before he passed.
Oh, wow.
I got to spend time with Les Brown. In fact, I was his security, moving him back and forth between the stage and the green room. So I got to spend a few hours alone with Les Brown. That was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I've had some pretty influential people in my life, and finally decide to start taking their advice after a little bit of time. So, yep.
Yeah.
But
sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
Yeah. So
Start with why is what it's called.
There we go.
Start with why. Simon Sinek. Yeah, I found it in my Audible.
Yeah. So, well, very cool.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Well, Cody, I'm gonna lock in your number. And then I'll text you, my sister's deal there.
Perfect.
And I'll give her a call and tell her that we spoke. And if you ever want to like connect with her, I'm happy to set that up.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I think even just kind of experience and just seeing what she's doing in life would be fun. So.
Okay.
Well, very cool, sir.
All right, Cody.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, and you as well. Have a good time.
All right. Have a good night.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time and spending it with us as we have this conversation. And again, I truly appreciate you and the support and being here as we kind of grow this community and let everybody else know they're not alone. The spiritual awakening and kind of life changes are real, and it's happening to a lot of people. And so if you find yourself needing somebody to talk to or just wanting a support group, find yourself on Facebook. We've got the support group there, The Awakened Stranger. And that's just a space where you can share information, share ideas, have conversations, discussions for anybody going through similar things, and just a safe space for everybody to kind of be there and support each other. And then if you'd like to share your episode or share some time with me on a podcast episode, I would love for you to schedule a time. I've got a link to my Google Calendar, both on my TikTok bio page as well as Instagram. So on TikTok, you can find me at Cody Rampton. And then on the Instagram page is at The Awakened Stranger. And both of those links, or both of those sites, have a link to the Google Calendar. You can just go ahead and select a time zone or time slot and have a conversation. We throw these up on Spotify and just let the world know that you're not alone, and that people go through experiences and everybody's life is different, and we all have a purpose. And sometimes it's just sharing a story. So I'd love to have a conversation, hold space with you if that's something you feel called to. And hope you all have an amazing day. And thank you again for the support. And if you find this entertaining or at least something worth supporting, I'd love to have you follow us on Spotify and help grow that community as well. So I appreciate you all so much, and thank you. And until next time, love you all and have a great day.